LeighTDickey.com. Well, hello everybody, Leigh Dickey here. Welcome to another episode of the Beats and Speaks podcast here on LeighTDickey.com, Leigh Dickey TV, the YouTube channel, and everywhere else you happen to be listening to this on all the major podcast apps and your podcast player of choice. Today, I want to tell you guys the story and tell you how I lost 40 pounds in less than 5 months and have managed to keep it off. Now, I have mentioned before that I probably mentioned this about in December, I'd say, where I had lost 40 pounds within less than 5 months, about 4.5. And I had said that I was going to basically take you through how I did that. I just wasn't sure how I was going to do it, but since I have this podcast and I've decided to get back into it, I figure now is a good time. It's the best time, if any, to tell that story. So, without further ado, here we go. I suppose I will tell you first how I got to having to lose 40 pounds. Last July, it was the end of July 2018. I was just getting out of the shower, and I noticed something. I was getting dressed. I'd gotten out of the shower. I was getting dressed. And I was putting on my socks. And I was getting winded. It was such a problem. I was getting winded. I was sweating profusely. And I was really struggling to just put on my socks. So, I mean, that was the first red flag where I did this with no problem. Even the day before or even the week before, I was like, what's going on here? You know? So struggling to put on my socks, getting winded, sweating profusely, not to mention it's the end of July, so it's super hot. And we're getting to that point of the year now. Here we are in 2019, because we're coming up on July as well. And again, I was trying to put my shoes on, or put my socks on. I was getting winded, sweating profusely, and I was just like, that can't be good, you know, because I was really, really struggling to even catch my breath. It was a mess, I figure. And I was like, okay, maybe it's not really a big deal. Maybe it's just, you know, I'm not having the best of days. Perhaps this will pass. So a couple days later, I was still having trouble putting my socks on, even putting my clothes on. I'd have to wear like really big, oversized clothes. And I was just like, okay, wait a second. It was progressively getting worse, you know, from what it had been like a day or two prior, where I was just struggling to put my socks on after getting out of the shower. Because that's one thing I will do if I go to the bathroom and have a shower. I'll bring my clothes that I'm going to wear that day with me, right, into the bathroom, or like somewhere within the vicinity of my bathroom and my shower. So, couple days of, like 2-3 days of me struggling to put my socks on, having trouble breathing, sweating profusely and just getting winded while going through like normal everyday tasks, even walking in my neighborhood, walking up my street. It was getting really, really difficult. And I had gone for my annual checkup at my doctor probably like, I don't know, maybe a month prior. And my doctor, from what I gather, because he's been my doctor my whole life, basically, since before I was born, and, you know, right after I came out and made my debut, was the size of a football, and even up till now. So, my whole life, you know, basically from beginning to present day, he's not the type that would tell you you need to do something to change how, like, the number on the scale. He's not the type that would do that. He just kind of would look at the number on the scale, go, make a few notes, and then that would be that, and then, okay, great, yeah, see you next year. I mean, he'd tell me how much I weighed, and he would tell me where I needed to be, but I was like, you know what? And in years past, I was like, don't worry about it. It will pass, basically. It'll be okay. It'll just blow over. I got to a point last year where I was like, if I don't turn this around, if I don't change something, he's either going to tell me I'm really sick, I either have something I didn't have before, or, I'm not going to be around much longer. Like, I'm closer to death's door than I want to be. And the thing is, when I just decided to change everything, I was 29. Okay, so this was just last year. I'm 30 now. And I got to a point where I got sick of feeling the way I did and finally decided to do something about it. What had happened was, during my annual physical with my doctor in June of 2018, I looked at the number on the scale, didn't think about it until a month later when I really noticed that I was struggling to put on my clothes, my socks, my shoes, and just go throughout my daily life. The number on the scale, 200 pounds. Okay, I was 200 pounds in July of 2018. This is the end of July, mind you, okay? 200 pounds, okay? Just keep that in mind. And I've mentioned this countless times. I have cerebral palsy. It's hard enough to walk around and be mobile as it is. So you can imagine being 200 pounds, being 5'6", having cerebral palsy, having to use a walker to get around. Life was difficult. And I'm not even one to, I'll shoulder all the blame at that point, because it is my fault, or it was my fault, that I got to 200 pounds. I wasn't watching what I was eating. I wasn't, paying attention to what I was putting into my body, where I would just eat and eat and eat and eat. It didn't matter what it was. It could have been cake. It could have been donuts. It could have been a sandwich. It could have been anything from a fast food restaurant like McDonald's. It could have been the sweetest thing from a coffee shop. Didn't matter to me. I would put everything I could into my body. I don't know why I ate so much. I have no idea. It was probably, now that I think about it, it was probably emotional eating. I don't know whether or not it had to do with, things not going the way I wanted to in my personal life or my professional life, and just not being happy with myself and where my life was at that point. I was just not in a good place, right? So instead of doing anything that was, say, incredibly self-destructive, like turn to anything that, like, the world would frown upon, say, like drugs or alcohol or anything like that, I turned to food, because that's what I had. I would always go into my fridge and just, like, what do I have in there that's easy to eat, that, like, I can just pull out and have right now? Whether or not it's good for me, I didn't really care. Okay? And I got to this point in July of last year where I was struggling to basically live, and I was struggling to hold on to what semblance of a life I had at that point. And I just decided to change everything. Okay? I'm happy that I did. I'm really happy that I did, because now my clothes, I really haven't had a chance to go shopping for new clothes. I'm still wearing the clothes that I did last year, and it honestly looks like I'm wearing a parachute right now. I'm wearing an extra large shirt. I'm wearing size 38-inch shorts, and these fit me with no issue last year. Now I'm wearing a parachute. Like, it honestly looks like I'm wearing MC Hammer. Okay? I've been around the world, from London to the Bay. It's Hammer, Yo Hammer, MC Hammer, Yo Hammer, and the rest can go this way. But I'm too legit to quit now. I was really heavy, like I said, 200 pounds, and I was just eating and eating and eating and eating and eating. And I finally just decided that enough was enough. I was going to start taking better care of myself, start scaling back. And I'm happy that I did that, because here we are like almost a year later and I feel great. Okay. How I basically lost the 40 pounds and have managed to keep it off. Let's get into that. I had a magic bullet around. I'm not sure how many of you know what that is. If you've seen the infomercial, it's basically a really small blender, a small and powerful blender that will blend things and mix things within seconds, right? So we had one lying around the house that my mom actually bought, because the blender that we had before the magic bullet, which was an old wedding gift that my parents had gotten back in, I think, like 1985 or 86, something like that, just stopped working, okay? It had worked for more than 30 years. It was older than me, and it finally just stopped working one day. I mean, I think a piece came loose, and there was something floating around in the glass blender part of it, the glass cup or the carafe, and my mom said, we need a new blender. And to that end, I don't blame her, because the thing is from 1985, 86, and this was like 2017 when we got the magic bullet. When I think my mom bought it home, she thought it would be bigger, and because it's so small, she didn't really use it that much, and she didn't want to break it, so we just didn't really use it that much. And it sat around for maybe a year before I decided to basically get a hold of myself and a hold of my diet and change things for me. So it's laying around one day. I make the decision to basically change everything about my diet, about my lifestyle. And I said, well, if my mom's not going to use it and it's sitting here, I might as well. So I started at that point. This was like the end of July, beginning of August of 2018, to make smoothies, daily smoothies. I would make them daily at first. As of right now, I'm probably close to 240 smoothie recipes, and this is the end of June 2019 as I'm recording this. I make them occasionally now because I got my diet under control, and life gets busy sometimes, but I still will watch what I eat and still will make the smoothies occasionally. Actually, if I get up early enough tomorrow, I might just make one. But last year when I started, the magic bullet was on my counter, and I was like, okay, we're going to take a serious crack at this and see what happens. So what I would do is I would look in my fridge and see what I had, what fruits, what vegetables. I'd put them in the magic bullet, in the cup itself, and then add liquid. At first, I started using skim milk, and then it was water. I'm now using almond milk if I make a smoothie, or even if I don't, like I'll drink a glass of almond milk during the day. I'm also getting plenty of water, which is something I wasn't before. More fruits, more vegetables. So I'd put the fruits and the vegetables into the bullet cup and blend. Sometimes it tells you that it blends it in seconds, but I tend to leave it in there just a bit longer. Sometimes up to a minute, maybe a minute and a half. Maybe that's not what it's supposed to be used for, but if I'm going to drink a smoothie, I like it smooth. I don't like having to pull chunks out of my teeth as I'm drinking the smoothie. But I would make them at first daily, to get my weight and my diet under control. And it worked. Okay, I would at first use one smoothie a day, as a meal replacement, usually around like breakfast or lunch. And then I wouldn't eat again until dinner, right? Which was probably sometime between 8 and 9:30 at night. And then I go to bed, get up, we do the same thing every day. And it worked. So I guess you could call it like a calorie restrictive diet. And it worked. I did that daily for, probably, let's see. I'd say almost 4 months. I made it 113 days without missing a smoothie. And then I missed one on that 114th day and instantly felt like crap. I did not feel well. I felt like absolute garbage, but I got back on track. And as I said earlier, I'm probably up to 237, 238 recipes, somewhere around 237 and 240. We're in that range in terms of how many smoothie recipes I have done just within the last year alone. I feel great. Every day I have one, or like whenever I do have one now, I still feel fantastic. I don't use them as meal replacements anymore, but I do drink them just to give my immune system a boost, just to give me a boost. And the other thing was I'd get more exercise. So I joined a gym. I've been going to the gym. I have equipment here at the house. I lift weights here. I love going for walks. So I walk everywhere. I get my cardio in every day. And I just watch what I eat and watch what types of food I put into my body and how much and how often I eat. We usually stick with fruit, vegetables, more vegetables, things like that. Things that are good for you, things that are good for me. And when I started this whole weight loss journey and taking better care of myself and wanting to be this better picture of health than I was 200 pounds by the end of July 2018. And by Christmas Day, and by then I'd gotten a newer scale, a better working scale. By Christmas Day of that year, 2018, I got on the scale on Christmas Day. This was like really late at night / like early on Christmas Day. It was probably like around midnight, maybe 12:30. I got on the scale, looked at the number, and I went from 200 pounds at the end of July 2018 to 160 by Christmas Day. And I'm still at that mark as of today, as of June, July 2019. I am still sitting at 160 pounds, and I feel fantastic. I'm not struggling to put on my clothes. I'm not, sweating profusely as I get out of the shower. I'm not experiencing shortness of breath. Everything turned a corner. Everything has improved for the better. I feel fantastic. I've advocated to friends that if you want to try it, start out small, get more fruits, get more vegetables, get more water in there. And I'm hoping one day to put out a smoothie recipe book. That's just something I've been mulling over in my head for probably the better part of the last year since I started on this smoothie diet thing and watching what I ate and watching what went into my body. But there you have it, the story of how I lost 40 pounds in less than 5 months. In 4.5 months, I lost 40 pounds and I have managed to keep it off. There you have it. This episode of the Beats and Speaks podcast, how yours truly, Leigh Dickey, managed to lose 40 pounds in less than 5 months and has managed to keep it off. I hope this helps you guys. If you're struggling with weight, like I always have, if you're struggling with, food, if you're constantly eating and you're not eating, stuff that's all that good for you. But I will admit that throughout my entire life, my weight has always been an issue. I think once I got out of high school and college and my metabolism kind of slowed down because I wasn't really taking good care of myself. And that's completely my fault. but I'm glad that I had that epiphany, if you will, and decided to turn a corner, turn this thing around, and not drive my car towards a cliff. My car meaning myself, basically my body and my life. I didn't want to Thelma and Louise this thing and jump into a gorge. So, I'm happy that I am where I am, that I managed to turn the thing around and correct itself, and correct myself. If any of you are struggling with weight and your food intake and what you think you should do, try doing a smoothie a day with fresh vegetables, fresh fruit. And if you want, you can do what I do. I occasionally add protein powder. I love peanut butter. That's another one of my favorite ingredients. So I either use actual, like, all natural peanut butter or all natural peanut butter powder. That's another one if you like that sort of stuff. But that's basically how I managed to turn my life around and go from being 200 pounds at the end of July 2018 to 160 pounds by Christmas Day of that same year. And here we are in June, July of 2019, and I'm still sitting at 160 pounds, and I feel fantastic. But there you have it, the story of how yours truly, Leigh Dickey, lost 40 pounds and has managed to keep it off to this point, to this day. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. You can find the Beats and Speaks podcast on your preferred podcast app, your preferred podcast player of choice, on my official website, leightdickey.com, and everywhere podcasts can be found. So thank you guys again for tuning in. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe to Leigh Dickey TV on YouTube. Continue to visit leightdickey.com for everything and anything Leigh Dickey related. But this is it for this episode of the Beats and Speaks podcast. We will see you all and talk to you all later. Leigh Dickey signing off. Peace. LeighTDickey.com